Roald Dahl's fantastical children's tales of enchanted chocolate, wicked witches, friendly giants, and giant peaches have been cherished worldwide for decades. But the themes of his books are at times darkly comic, twisted, and gory. See, as it does for many, World War II irreversibly transforms Dahl's life. What he witnesses during his brief but intense career as a fighter pilot seeps deep into his imagination and his bedtime stories. Welcome to a World War II in real-time biography special, where I look at the major or interesting figures of the war. I'm Indy Neidell. Roald Dahl is born in 1916 in the Cardiff suburb of Llandaff in Wales to Norwegian parents. He has a traditional boarding school education, but also has a mischievous streak, so he is frequently punished and even beaten by teachers, headmasters, and house prefects, the most senior schoolboys. He will complain in his later years that he cannot sit for more than 2 hours because of all the canings he received during his strict upbringing. His school years also clearly leave Dahl with a somewhat outlaw-like disregard for authority. So instead of enrolling in university, he applies for a job with the Shell Oil Company. Now, it is the perfect role for an adventurous teen, since travel to the far-reaching, exotic corners of the British Empire is right there in the job description. Dahl set sail for Dar es Salaam, the capital of the East African British colony of Tanganyika, what is today Tanzania. But with World War II looming, he's conscripted into the King's African Rifles in August 1939 at the age of 22. And when the war breaks out, he is placed in command of a platoon of Askaris, rounding up and interning hundreds of local German residents. But Dahl wants to serve in the Royal Air Force. He drives to Nairobi, Kenya to attend flight school with 15 other trainees and learns to fly in de Havilland Tiger Moth biplanes, fairly obsolete models with open cockpits. And that actually leads to a complication. See, Dahl stands 6 foot 6 inches tall, so his head sticks out of the cockpit and into the slipstream, which means he has to duck every few seconds in order to breathe properly. His training concludes in Baghdad in May 1940, and he qualifies as a pilot, passing with flying colors. A few months later, he is commissioned as a second lieutenant and dispatched to Ismailia, Egypt. He is assigned to the Gloucester Gauntlet Squadron number 80. Carrying out operations against the Italians in Libya. But on September 19th, Second Lieutenant Roald Dahl flies his Gladiator solo for 7.5 hours and has a close scrape with death. Okay, things don't look so good from the beginning of the flight. He's equipped with little instruction, no radio, and a map that's strapped to his knee. He calculates his approach to the main British position of Mersa Matruh, but the airstrip is not where it should be. He runs low on fuel above the desert and realizes that he has to attempt an emergency landing. The Gladiator hits the sand at 75 miles an hour, and Dahl smashes his head against the reflector sights. With his skull and his nose fractured, and his front teeth knocked out, and temporarily blind, Dahl manages to escape the Gloucester just in time, just before the fuel tank ignites an explosion. The biplane explodes, spraying parts and loose ammunition all around the landing area. Did he walk in slow motion away from the explosion without turning back? He would probably try to have you think so decades later when he packs his memoir Going Solo with plenty of such romantic elaborations, but no. Dahl crawls for his life and is rescued by a British infantry patrol, and his injuries will require a 6-month stay in hospital. He had been given the wrong location for the squadron airstrip, which was actually located a further 50 miles to the south. Dahl had in fact landed in no man's land between the British and Italian front lines. Now, once he recovers, he returns to his squadron in February 1941, where he spends the next few months fighting. With the worry that the Axis powers will invade Greece, many of the British forces in North Africa, including Dahl's squadron, are assigned there, and Dahl flies a Hawker Hurricane to the RAF airstrip at Eleusis, near Athens. When that invasion comes, the situation quickly becomes desperate. The Greeks and the Brits are outnumbered and outgunned in the air, and Dahl's main targets as a fighter pilot will be the German Junker 88 bombers, which are as fast as his Hurricane and heavily armed. On April 15, 1941, Roald Dahl sees some intense action and chases 6 German aircraft over the Greek town of Chalkis. He soon realizes he is in the sights of the rear gunners of all 6 planes. Luck comes to his aid, as the Junkers are forced by the mountainous terrain to fly into a line. Now having to face only the tail bomber, Dahl shoots it down. While all 3 German airmen parachute to safety, over the following days, Dahl shoots down another few Junkers over Chalkis and the port of Piraeus. On the 20th, British and Commonwealth High Command decides to evacuate Greece as the situation is untenable. Of the remaining fighter force of the RAF in Greece, some 12 Hurricanes gather for a last offensive action in the Battle of Athens. The objective is to harass a formation of Ju-88s and Dornier 17 bombers heading towards Piraeus, escorted by at least 200 Me-109 and Me-110 fighters. Okay, that's according to the people of Athens. Dahl says it's 152 enemy planes total. By his own account, Dahl writes, "Round and round Athens we went, and Flight Lieutenant Pat Paddle led us one hell of a dance around the skies above the city. It was truly the most breathless, and in a way the most exhilarating time I have ever had in my life." You see, Dahl's self-confidence makes him a great pilot, no doubt. But that same conviction will lead him to glamorously characterize the war as his own personal coming-of-age, going solo adventurous thrill ride. Nonetheless, Dahl shoots at any enemy Luftwaffe planes in his sight. This is more than a dogfight. This is more like a melee. 5 Hurricanes are shot down and 3 more damaged. He will write in his autobiography how after the battle, he shakes so badly while completely drenched in sweat that he can't even light his own cigarette, and the airbase doctor has to do it for him. From April 21st, he will complete a quick succession of missions before retiring from active service. He'll be tasked with flying a sealed package to an agent in Eleusis. His squadron will fight against the pro-Nazi Vichy French and will escort Royal Navy convoys. But Dahl suffers from crippling headaches, probably from his desert crash landing. His last flight is June 23, 1941. He's logged a total of 264 hours and 55 minutes of flying time, and his score of 6 aerial victories certifies him as a flying ace. He will never get in a cockpit again, but will instead embark on other careers. He will first serve as a diplomat at the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., then later in the British Secret Service, seducing heiresses and women of power. At this point, he has zillions of stories and inspiration. He just needs to put pen to paper. Dahl's first work published in 1942 is Shot Down Over Libya, a fictionalized account inspired by his crash landing in the desert. He'll continue writing and will attract the attention of cultural figures like Walt Disney. His first novel, The Gremlins, will introduce the world to creatures that are determined to cause mischief, in this case to RAF fighter planes. And only a few years after his military service, Dahl's ultimate career as a children's author will commence. Side note here, you would think that bearing witness to the global conflict and the Holocaust would awaken one to the perils of xenophobia. But in the case of Roald Dahl, this may not be true. Later in his life, Dahl will make several strongly anti-Semitic statements. His legacy, however, is as one of the world's best-selling fiction authors and most beloved children's storytellers of all time. Roald Dahl died in 1990 at the age of 74. Well, that is it for today. If you would like to see more action in the skies, you can click right here for our Between Two Wars episode about aviation during the interwar years. And you can also click subscribe to never miss an exciting regular episode, bio special, other special, all kinds of weird stuff that we occasionally like to put up. Don't we, guys?
Yes! We love it!
We sure do. See you next time.